Do you feel like your sex life is a bit dull, mediocre, or boring? Do you have sex with your spouse just to get it over with? Do you wish you could look forward to sex rather than dread it? In this video, I'll be sharing tips that have worked for me and my clients that help us to enjoy sex more within our marriages and make it more of a priority. So let's get into it. Let's talk about how you can spice up your sex life in your marriage. So the first thing you need to do is to reflect on your beliefs about sex and your beliefs about your body. So when you think about sex, what thoughts come to mind? What feelings do you have when you think about sex or when you think about having sex with your spouse? And I want you to reflect on your overall beliefs about sex. Do you see sex as something that is shameful or dirty? When you think about sexual pleasure, do you see sexual pleasure as something that is reserved only for the man to experience? Do you see yourself as worthy of experiencing sexual pleasure? Do you see sexual pleasure as something that is in alignment with your faith or not? Do you view your body in a positive way or in a negative way? Do the thoughts that you have about your body, do they serve you positively? Do they help you to feel sexy? Do they help you to feel sexually attractive? Do the thoughts that you have about your body help you get in the mood to have sex with your spouse or not? The next thing to focus on is to work on any relationship issues that you have within your marriage. You can read books on the topic of marriage, you can attend courses, but I also recommend, if you're able to see a marriage therapist or a marriage counselor or a relationship coach to help you to overcome any issues that you're struggling within your marriage that you're struggling to overcome on your own. The next thing to focus on is to look at the roles within the family, specifically the roles between the husband and the wife, and have a look at if there is one spouse who has a bigger load or a bigger burden than the other, and see if it's possible to balance out those roles a bit more. And this comes down to communication. The next thing you might want to focus on is consuming some foods that boost your libido or your desire for sex. These foods are sometimes known as aphrodisiacs. You can definitely check them out online. So just type foods that boost your libido and have a look through. The next thing to focus on is to create the right environment mentally and physically. So obviously physical environment does make a difference in how we feel, but also our mental environment, the thoughts we're having, the feelings we're feeling really make a big difference in whether we're in the mood for sex or not and whether we actually enjoy sex or not. The next thing you can focus on is having regular date nights with your spouse. These date nights don't always need to lead to sex, but they should be regular, preferably once a week, where you commit to having time with your spouse. It doesn't need to be anything super fancy. It could be at home. It could be that you go out, and if you have kids, see if there's someone that can look after your kids during that time. Another thing you can focus on is non-sexual touch throughout the day and doing this regularly. So making sure that you're regularly touching your spouse in a way that you're not expecting sex from it. So regular hugs and kisses, make it spontaneous, but do it regular where you're not expecting anything in return. Something else you can focus on is making sure you know your spouse's love language. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, you may want to look into this book. It's called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. And in this book, it just helps you understand what your own love language is and what the love language of your spouse is, so that you make sure that you are showing love to your spouse in a way that they want and vice versa. The next thing to focus on is good hygiene and self-care. So having a shower and cleaning your teeth, but also more generally in terms of self-care, regularly taking care of yourself. So making sure that you're sleeping well, making sure that you're reducing stress as much as possible, making sure that you're moving your body frequently, because the more you are engaging in movement throughout the day, it helps you to get in the mood for sex and helps your body feel relaxed. So it is really important for women especially, to engage in proper self-care before they engage in sex. So for the woman, I would say spend time, for example, having time to yourself before you have sex. If you have kids, see if your husband can take over and look after the kids so that you can have time to yourself. Maybe that night, if you're going to have sex in the night, maybe that night the husband can put the kids to bed so you can go and have a bath, or you can go for a walk or meditate, or just have some me time, even just read a book. Just have some time for you to unwind and relax in order to help you to get in the mood for sex. And on the note of hygiene and self-care, in terms of what the man can do, men, there are things that you can do to groom yourself, to take care of your appearance, nice perfume, Think about how you used to maybe take care of yourself when you were younger, maybe how you used to take care of yourself in the dating period or the kind of getting to know period, or even at the very start of your marriage. How did you take care of yourself back then? Are there some of those things that you can bring back now in terms of your own self-care, making yourself look good for your wife, and the wife the same for your husband? The next thing I want to talk about is differences in levels of sexual desire. You may notice that in your marriage, one of you, so one spouse, may have a higher level of sexual desire than the other. That's completely normal. Actually, in the book Come As You Are, the author Emily Nagoski, she talks about different types of desire. And typically, the spouse that has a higher level of desire has what's known as spontaneous desire. And the spouse that has a kind of lower desire for sex may have more responsive desire, and it can change, it can ebb and flow, so it's not necessarily like a static thing. But the reason this is important to know is because the spouse who has a kind of lower desire may have responsive desire. And what that means is for that spouse who has a lower desire or who has responsive desire, what really matters for them is context, both physical context, physical environment, in order to get them aroused and in the mood and get them wanting to have sex, but also mental environment. Another thing I want to mention is something that really works for many couples is scheduling sex. And you may think that scheduling sex seems counterintuitive or counterproductive to spicing up your sex life. You may be thinking that in order to spice up your sex life, it should always be spontaneous. And that's not true. For someone who has a lower desire for sex or who has responsive desire, context really matters. And so if you're scheduling sex, that person who has a lower desire knows when to expect sex, knows that they can just prepare for sex and get ready mentally and physically themselves. So scheduling sex really does work for many married couples. It could be a certain time or a certain day of the week that you agree on together, a time when you know that you both can be relaxed and where you can both be fully present and in the moment so that you can enjoy each other during sex. So I have a few more things that I want to share with you, but just before I do, I'd love it if you could leave a comment below and let me know what struggles you're having within your sex life so that I can create more videos on these topics. And if you haven't already, please hit the like button below. Thank you. All right, let's continue. The next thing you can focus on is role play, fantasies, and your alter ego. So let me go through each one now. So do you have a sexual fantasy? It's very, very normal and very common to have sexual fantasies. So think about what sexual fantasies you have and think about sharing this sexual fantasy and communicating about this sexual fantasy with your spouse, because sexual fantasies are a great way to enjoy your sex life more and to have more fun, and something great that you can enjoy exploring with your spouse. So I mentioned the words alter ego earlier. If you're not really sure what an alter ego is, this is a great book to get. It's called The Alter Ego Effect by Todd Herman. And basically it's about how to use the power of secret identities to transform your life. So if you think about any goal that you have, like for example, you have a goal for your sex life, to improve your sex life and enjoy sex more, you can create an alter ego, something that you can step into, something that you can become to help you really enjoy sex more, especially if you're struggling with for example, you're struggling with loving your body, like maybe you don't find yourself sexy or sexually attractive. By creating an alter ego, you create a persona or a secret identity that you step into to allow you to fully experience and enjoy sex more. Something else you can look into is explore getting some sex toys and explore using those sex toys on each other and with each other. Something else you can look into is getting dressed up. This applies to both the man and the woman, you know, lingerie, makeup, perfume. For the men, how can you groom yourself? How can you make yourself more attractive? Those kinds of things are really important to take into consideration. So think about how you took care of yourself back at the start of your marriage or back in the kind of courting or dating period or the getting to know phase. And if you're kind of slacking in that kind of area, think about ways that you can work on grooming yourself and taking care of your appearance. The next thing I want to talk about is to really focus on pleasure. This applies to both the man and the woman. So men, really focus on how can you ensure that your wife is really enjoying sex and focusing on her sexual pleasure, and women the same. What can you do to really enhance and increase the level of sexual pleasure that you provide for your husband, and making sure that you're willing to receive pleasure just as much as you want to give it. Now, on the note of pleasure, sex is not just about achieving orgasm. The main purpose of sex is pleasure. So when you really focus on pleasure, it makes you look forward to it. Just like in anything in life, if you know that you're going to enjoy something and you're going to experience pleasure from that thing, you prioritize it, you seek it. So when we prioritize pleasure, it's something that when we prioritize pleasure in our sex life, it's something that we prioritize and something that we seek. And there are so many different ways to enjoy sexual pleasure that don't rely on penetration. So for some women, they may not be in the mood for penetration. There are so many ways for both the man and the woman to experience orgasm and experience sexual pleasure that don't rely on penetration. You can look into oral sex, manual stimulation with your hands, look into stimulating the clitoris on a woman, for example. There is also a really great book that you can look into getting. It's by Habib Akande. I have one of his books here. It's called A Taste of Honey. And he also has another book on a technique known as kunyaza. This is a technique where you use the penis to stimulate the clitoris, among other things. So definitely look into Brother Habib Akande's work and his book on kunyaza, because kunyaza is a technique that is known to produce really intense, pleasurable orgasms for the woman and can lead to female ejaculation. And when we're talking about pleasure, really focus on stimulating each other's erogenous zones. You may want to go online and type female erogenous zones or male erogenous zones and look into that. But really it comes down to you getting to know your spouse and experimenting, seeing what works for your spouse, seeing what they like and what they don't like. The final thing I want to talk about is for you to take into consideration the different phases in the woman's cycle. Now, we know that a woman goes through a monthly menstrual cycle. And what's really great is there is a book called In the Flow by Alyssa Vitti. And in this book, she has a whole section called Love Flow. And she breaks it down into the 4 phases of a woman's menstrual cycle. Most people know that when a woman has her monthly cycle, she goes through a period known as menstruation, where she's getting her period blood. But that's just one phase. There are 3 other phases. They are the follicular phase, the luteal phase, and the ovulatory phase. And depending on the phase that the woman is in, she may experience a different level of desire for sex, and she may experience a different level of pleasure during sex. So for example, during the ovulatory phase, this is typically the best time for engaging in penetrative sex, but it's also the best time for a woman to experience multiple orgasms and more intense orgasms. During the other phases, so the luteal and the follicular, the woman may feel that she's a little bit more dry, so she may need to spend more time in foreplay and may need to use lubricant. And obviously during the menstrual phase, Islamically, we are told to avoid penetrative sex during the menstrual phase. But there are other forms of non-penetrative sex that you can explore, or perhaps during the menstrual phase, the woman just wants to rest, and that's perfectly fine too. I'm currently in the process of creating a program related to sexual pleasure in helping couples to experience more sexual pleasure. So if you're interested in finding out more, you can join the waitlist and you'll be one of the first to know when I release this program. So the link to join the waitlist is in the description box below. But depending on the date that you're watching this video, it may be that I've already released the program. And if so, there'll be more details in the description box below. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below if you found this video helpful, and also let me know what things you're planning to try that I shared with you in this video. Please do give this video a like and subscribe. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit the bell icon so that you're notified each time I upload a new video. And I'd love it if you could watch this video next, especially if you're, recently engaged or you're a new bride and you want some tips about the wedding night or about first time sex. Check out this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.